In November, we're getting Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, and at some point later than that, probably December, it's going to be integrated into Warzone. And at that point, we don't know what's going to happen to DMZ. I kind of think they might just stop it. They might get rid of it. It'll be removed from the menu. I don't think they'll want to support it while they're doing this new Zombies mode that's a part of Modern Warfare 3. You'll have to buy the game for that. It's not free to play. Because it sounds like it's kind of similar, you know, it's an extraction mode. You're going in with your friends, completing missions, and then getting out again. There's no PvP in it, which I'm sure some people will be super happy about, judging by my Twitter conversations today. But there is still that kind of working with other teams, seeing other teams about on a map, and fighting the AI, fighting zombies. I kind of think that might replace DMZ, which probably will make a lot of people kind of angry because, you know, lots of people aren't really into zombies. They prefer things to be a little bit more realistic than that. And lots of people really like the PvP in DMZ, so it might not be a sort of fitting alternative. Instead of that, maybe they'll keep DMZ going just on kind of life support, so they won't add anything new to it, but it'll still be there as part of Warzone for people who want to work their way through the missions. But, of course, there's a third option, and the thing that lots of people are really, really hoping for, and that's that DMZ keeps going and gets another year of content, or at least another year of content, let's say. Maybe they'll just keep it going forever. But in this video, I want to talk about what I want to see in DMZ if they do keep it going this year. Before I get into my ideas though, do leave your ideas in the comments below. What do you want to change about DMZ? And what do you want to see the same? What do you want to see them do more of in the mode? Because there's been lots of changes to DMZ already over the last few months. But I'd be super interested to hear, so just let me know in the comments, what would you like to see change in DMZ? By the way, in the background of today's video, you've just got a game that I played this morning on Ashika Island, where I was trying to do that thing where you go in and then you get $100,000 and you exfil on the final exfil. To get the exfil upgrade, which Westy just told me on his stream, apparently takes it down to like 19 seconds to exfil, which sounds absolutely insane. I think I'm about halfway done with it at this point, so hopefully I'll get that done over the rest of this week. This was a fun game, lots of sort of unexpected turns after we killed this team and then came and helped them because that's the sort of nice person I am. So on that note, let's talk about the first kind of big controversial element of DMZ and whether that should change. It's the PvP. I've been talking to some people today. I had a YouTube comment where someone was saying that they were very disappointed in me because I like PvPing in DMZ, and they were saying that they've watched my videos for ages and are disappointed that I would turn to PvP. And I made the point to them that they clearly haven't been watching my videos very closely because literally since DMZ came out, I've been into the PvP. I've really enjoyed the PvP. I thought it's been a fun part of the game. When you're trying to get missions done, it adds quite a lot of threat to the game. And when you've done the missions, it gives you something to do. You know, you can go around, try and kill players, try your luck against other teams, something like that. Sometimes you want to work with other people, but sometimes you want to fight them and steal their stuff. And I kind of think that's okay. Of course, sometimes it's super frustrating. Like if you've got a good build going, you know, you've got all the stuff you wanted, or you've got a mission objective in your inventory, and then you get killed, that can be super frustrating. I understand that. And there's lots of people who seem to think that doing PvP in DMZ is wrong somehow. I think that's a very silly opinion. I do just think like the game is built as a PvPvE extraction shooter. PvP is a big part of that. Obviously, the game encourages PvP. It does things like having the hunt squad contracts. When you try to extract, it sends a flare up in the air. When you pick up the weapon case, it tells everyone else where you are. There's UAVs. There's all sorts of ways that help you to try and find other players and try to bring you into conflict with other players. Only having 3 extraction zones, or whatever you want to call it, sites, that sort of thing is designed to try and encourage you to compete with the other players. And there's loads of missions where you have to kill players, and loads of missions where, you know, there's only one of those objectives that spawn on a map, so it's likely to bring you into conflict with other people. I think that's a big part of the design of the game. So to say that people shouldn't be doing PvP in DMZ seems kind of ridiculous to me. I think, you know, DMZ is a sandbox mode, so some people want to go in there and they just want to sort of gather all of the loot. Some people want to get all their missions done. Some people want to get all the upgrades done. And some people want to go and get in fights with other players. I know there's some people saying things like, oh, you should just go back to Warzone. You know, if you want to do PvP, why not just play Warzone? But Warzone's a very different kind of game. It feels very different. You know, in Warzone, it is just constant fight, 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 fight. If you die, you don't really lose anything. You just hop into the next game and keep going. With DMZ, you've got a little bit more of kind of a narrative, a bit more of a story. It feels like a bit of an adventure when you go into a game with DMZ. And, you know, you'll come up against the same people a few times. You'll sort of build up your gear. If you kill someone, you get something really good out of it. You know, you get their loot and you get all of their upgrades and things like that. I think DMZ just has a very different feel to it. And having like the threat of the AI as well changes the battles. I know when Warzone was first shown off at Warzone Next, they had AI all over the map. And I was actually kind of excited about it because I know a lot of the streamers there didn't really enjoy it. But I thought it looked really interesting. I was thinking, you know, that's going to change the way people move around the map. It's going to be much harder to sneak up on people because there's AI everywhere. So, you know, you're going to have to either be super sneaky and get around the AI, which will make you very slow, or you're going to have to make a noise and then people will know you're coming. And that sort of thing happens in DMZ. I think it makes DMZ PvP fights more interesting than maybe they are in Warzone. But, you know, that's a personal preference thing. That's just me. For the next game, I think with the controversy over all of this, it would be nice if maybe there were ways for players who just want to play PvE to experience that. Maybe have, you know, a separate track, a separate mode, like a pacifist mode, where you can't hurt other players and they can't hurt you, and you can go around and do your missions and stuff like that. But maybe you don't get all of the rewards, because obviously it would be super easy. Like, the entire game would be super easy. But if people just want to experience the maps without having to fight other players, it would be cool if there was something like that. I don't think they'll necessarily do it. Or if there was some easier ways to communicate to other players that you're friendly. In Sea of Thieves, which I always maintain is one of the kind of biggest extraction shooters that people seem to forget about, they have a system of flags where you can have different flags showing things like, hey, I want to get in fights, I'm going to hunt down other players. Or you can have a flag up saying, I really don't want to fight other people or anything like that. And that could be something that worked. I don't know if people would respect it or care about it, but maybe we could have like certain skins or something like that, where it's acknowledged that, you know, it means something. It means like, hey, this person is friendly. They are not going to be chasing down players or anything like that. Or maybe they could do something which a lot of people have suggested for a long while in DMZ, of having some kind of serious bounty on players that do PvP. Now, they started trying this, like there is a bounty system in the game at the moment, but you have to kill a lot of players to trigger it. You know, in like the smaller maps, you basically have to wipe out most of the map before you even get the bounty. Then all that seems to really happen is you get a bunch of AI soldiers come and chase you down. They're very, very easy to kill. And it's meant to tell you that there's enemies there. There's meant to be a big red circle on the map. I haven't seen that happen very much. I'm not sure if I've ever seen it happen, but maybe that's a thing that works. So it is meant to show you the general area of where these more dangerous players are. Maybe they could step that up. Maybe they could step up the bounty system, make it so if you've been killing players a lot, maybe, you know, there'll be like a bounty target on you, a smaller one that follows you around a little bit more closely. Maybe it would send things like the commander helicopter after you. So, you know, the commander helicopter is a great thing to help you spot players, because if it's shooting at someone, that's a player, so you know where that they're there. That could be really helpful. Just ways to make the game a little bit harder for people who are doing PvP. Because I think in general, people who do PvP kind of want a bit more of a fight. By the way, in this video, this Wilson absolutely messed us up. This was ridiculous how aggressive this thing was. I'm sure it's not normally like this. But yeah, I think they should keep PvP. I just think maybe they could do more to kind of mark enemies, to make it more of a decision to engage in PvP. So you can, but maybe make it a little harder for people. One thing I would like them to change that directly relates to this is the 6-man squad thing. I think they should just get rid of it. Right now, in DMZ, at least the kind of meta of the game, the way the game seems to go, what is that Wilson doing? That is crazy. But anyway, the way the game goes, in general, and from my experience, is that at the very beginning of the game, players come together because a lot of the spawns are close, they get into fights, and then whichever team wins, loots the losing team, takes what they want from them, and then reses them, and now you've got a bunch of 6-man squads, or, you know, in our case here, we had a 4-man squad.
Holy shit, there was some
a bunch of bigger squads, more squads than 3, going around, and it's kind of hard to organize those squads. A lot of the time you'll end up just going around hunting players and things like that, and that happens all the time. So then people start seeing all of these 6-man squads very early on, because it does tend to happen after the first couple of fights in the game, and then they complain about them, because if you are still solo or a duo or a trio and you get attacked by a 6-man squad, it's pretty rough. Like, it's pretty hard to deal with. And, you know, sometimes you can do it and it's amazing and it makes for these great adventures where, you know, me and Flynn sometimes as a duo have managed to take on 6-man squads and win, and that feels absolutely awesome. But a lot of the time, they just kind of steamroll you, don't they? They just absolutely obliterate you. They wipe you out very, very quickly, and that feels unfair. To be honest, in my mind, I think they should just get rid of them. It's not that I even think that they are ruining the game at this point. It was a lot worse a while ago. I'm not quite sure what changed. I hear lots of people saying like, oh, there's all these pre-made 6-man squads immediately getting bounties and jumping into helicopters and chasing people down. Personally, as someone that plays DMZ for like 3 hours a day, I haven't seen that, and I've played in the evening, I've played in the morning. I do only play on EU servers, but supposedly they're harder than other servers. I just don't see these big pre-made death squads going around hunting people. You know, as in, I think I've maybe seen one once in all of the time I've played DMZ. It just doesn't seem to happen that much. But I do think the kind of naturally formed 6-man squads are a bit of a problem, let's say. They are annoying, they don't feel particularly fun, and even when you're in them, it doesn't feel particularly fun. You know, running around in a 6-man squad, it just feels like the game gets too easy. Like, you can take out other teams without really paying any attention. Almost my favourite times in DMZ are when I end up in a 6-man squad, but they're all terrible. And, you know, they're all doing stupid things, they're all getting killed. That makes it more interesting than when you're just absolutely dominating in a match. So what do I think they should change for the next year of DMZ? Just get rid of assimilation. Just completely get rid of it, or limit it to only up to 3 players. I think they should still have the plea and revive system, but just go back to what it was a few months ago, where you had a truce afterwards. So, you know, if you get killed by an enemy team, you can plea, they can revive you, but you won't join their team or anything like that. You've just got a truce of maybe a couple of minutes where you can get away from them so they don't grief you or anything like that, and then you can go about your day. If that happened, I'd be rezzing people all the time. I think that'd be absolutely fine. You know, I'd kill people, take the stuff I need from them, then res them and send them on their way. That would be absolutely awesome. And then just, you know, make it so if maybe you're a solo player, you know, maybe your teammates quit, maybe your teammates extracted earlier, then if you find another solo player, you can join up, so you're in a duo now, but don't let people get in teams bigger than 3. So I just think it makes the whole thing unbalanced. In the bigger maps, it's a bit of a pain. In things like Koshai Complex, when you've got a 6-man squad in there, it's an absolute nightmare. They can absolutely destroy you. But anyway, enough talking about PvP. The other big change I would really, really like to see is the progression. I really think the progression in DMZ, while it's got better from where it was at the beginning when we were just doing missions to try and get some, you know, stickers and calling cards and things, I like the upgrades. I think it's a good idea. I think it should really be the focus of the game. Like, the focus should be improving not only your character through the upgrades and everything, but improving a base. It would be really cool if you had some kind of like home base, some home lobby that you could wander around in, invite your party into if you wanted, so they could come check it out. Have trophies of things up, you know, your biggest accomplishments up on the wall so you can show off. Have some things that are like really difficult to do that you can work towards. So then you can build whole new sections of your base and stuff like that. Just some kind of big meta game, something a little bit separate to the main game that gives you a reason to keep going into the DMZ. I think that would be awesome. It'd make me a lot more interested. You know, the upgrades are great, but it does feel kind of boring just looking through a bunch of menus. It's not presented in necessarily the best way. It would be cheesy and pointless, but I would really like to just be able to walk around a base and see things and show people, you know, who have joined my game, show people stuff that I've done, and they'll be like, oh, where did you get that? And you'll be like, oh yeah, that was from this crazy time when, and it would play into that whole idea of having awesome stories in DMZ. Maybe you could even have things like if you put a trophy on the wall, it comes with a little plaque at the bottom saying like what date you got it and who was on your squad or something like that. That would be awesome. Like, imagine if you ended up on a team with Fixate or something and you managed to achieve something and you could choose that trophy to put on your wall and then show people that you were on a team with Fixate. That would be absolutely amazing. Another big change I'd like them to make, and I've been saying this, I mean, to be honest, since before DMZ came out, I've been saying this since the early days of Warzone, but it's especially true in DMZ. I think they should get rid of the gunsmith. Just get rid of insured weapons completely. I think in DMZ in particular, you should not be able to design your gun and make it like absolutely perfect. I think in DMZ, most of the guns you find should be bad. Like, they should work out what's kind of the worst base versions of the worst guns, and those should be the guns that most of the AI are using. Those should be the guns that you generally find around the map. And then have contraband that's increasingly rare, increasingly powerful, much, much harder to get. So then you care about your guns. Right now, like in a game where I die, I will lose my main weapon. I'm using the FR Avancer at the moment, and I absolutely love that gun, but I'm using that at the moment. If I lose it, I'm going to get it back in half an hour, and I've got 2 more that I can use. So that's at least 2 more games I can go over an Avancer. That's probably going to take up the half an hour before the first one is ready again. And if I've got lots of money or I can dead drop some things, I can reduce that even more. It just doesn't feel like there's ever kind of gear that I'm excited about getting, because it's so easy to get everything, and there's not any gear that I'm worried about losing, because again, it's so easy to get everything. I really wish they'd get rid of the insured weapons, make it so, you know, you really have to make use of what you find, make use of what you get, and try to make the weapons that are available in the game much, much worse. It'd be much more interesting to be like, oh yeah, I need to go do this mission, but you know, the machine gun I've got only has like 15 rounds in a magazine, so this is going to be really tough. That doesn't really happen in DMZ. You're just like, oh, I'll just wait 5 minutes and then I'll get my gunsmith weapon and make the best weapon in the game again and use that. And it means like, you know, when you get into fights, nearly everyone is just using insured weapons, so everyone is just using the meta weapons. It makes the whole thing kind of stale. I've always been a big kind of, what's the word, proponent for? No, I don't know, supporter of? I don't know. I've always liked the idea of Call of Duty of making the guns worse. I think when the Modern Warfare 2 beta started, it was awesome that loads of the guns had really severe recoil, both like proper recoil and visual recoil. They were quite difficult to use, they were noisy. It just felt absolutely awesome because you had to kind of play around the guns, around the problems of the guns. Here in the game, I'm running away from a bomb drone. Earlier, I was like, ran away from a bomb drone easy, and was saying to someone in chat, yeah, you can run away from bomb drones, it's no problem. And then there, I completely couldn't run away from that bomb drone, it caught me and downed me, which was really annoying. But anyway, yeah, I think they should get rid of the gunsmith. I just think the game would be much more interesting without it. In general, I think Call of Duty multiplayer has a big problem with this, and single player to an extent, that the game is made kind of too refined, and that's maybe the wrong word for it. It makes it too easy to play exactly the way you want to play and get rid of any kind of obstacles. So, you know, they're making it, by the sounds of it in Modern Warfare 3, so you can move the way that you want to. You can use whatever guns exactly the way that you want to. They're getting rid of all of the potential obstacles, so you can do everything exactly the way you want. But that means everyone ends up kind of doing things the same way, and you end up playing every game the same. I used to really love Blackout in Black Ops 4 because there were no loadouts or anything like that. There was a weird box that was a bit like a loadout, but that didn't come in until later. But in Blackout, generally, you landed, you found your loot, and then you're like, okay, now I've got to make do with what I've found. You know, have you found a sniper rifle? Have you been able to find an extended mag? Have you been able to find a scope? Whatever you've been able to find, whatever you've been able to cobble together, that's what you've got to make the most of. By the way, in this game right now, you can see the weapon case coming towards me. I knew there was a team of 6 right outside, but I didn't really know what to do about it. I thought I'd snuck around, but then they activated UAV tower, which kind of ruined that. I think they had an advanced UAV up as well. So I rezzed this random teammate and then got absolutely slaughtered, which kind of sucked. But oh well. But yeah, so that is another big thing I'd like them to change for DMZ, which I think would be quite unpopular, but I'd be interested to hear your opinions. I would just like them to get rid of insured weapons altogether. I don't know. From Warzone, I would like them to get rid of loadouts. And they've already talked about the single player Modern Warfare 3, saying, you know, there'll be some of these big open combat missions where you'll be able to take in your loadouts and everything. It's like, no, I don't want that. I like the single player missions. I like the campaign missions where you give me a weird gun and I've got to work out how to use it for a mission. I don't just want to keep using the same things over and over again because they're the best way of doing it. I know lots of people say, well, you don't have to use the best guns. You know, you could challenge yourself. You could use something weird. And I was earlier today. I was using a crossbow, firing gas grenades, and it was awful. But when a game gives you something that's like the best way to do it, the most efficient way to do it, of course, in anything that's even slightly competitive, you're going to take that to give yourself an edge. Otherwise, you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. But if everybody has the same kind of problems, if everybody has the same kind of restrictions, that to me makes it way more interesting. That to me makes the game more fun. The final thing I wanted to talk about, the final thing that I really hope they change in DMZ is the mission design. I talked to someone a little bit earlier about this, that the missions in DMZ, a lot of them are kind of tedious. Loads of them are basically fetch quests. Like when I've heard people complaining about Starfield lately, one of the big complaints is that early on, lots of the missions are just go here, get this, go here, get this. And that's what most of DMZ is. It's just going to a place, picking something up, and then getting out again. Which sometimes can be fun, like in the right situation, like Building 21. Spawning into Building 21, having to go pick up a laptop from the top floor, and then get out again. That's a kind of exciting mission. That's a kind of challenging thing to do. But doing it in something like Al Mazrah, where it's like spawn into Al Mazrah, pick up 5 things and get out, there's a fairly good chance you'll just never see any other players while you're doing it. You might not even see many AI. You're just not going to have much of an adventure. Nothing particularly interesting is going to happen. So I'd like them to really work on the missions and try to make them all something that could trigger an adventure, that could cause you to do something that was really exciting, something that was really cool. And I think this is like, you know, the early DMZ missions are well designed. They're like tutorials. They show you how to use UAV towers, how to use vehicles, how to use the dead drops, things like that. I think that's all very, very good. The early missions are pretty good. But then as it goes on later, I'd really like it if all of the missions had a kind of philosophy of, you should be able to do every mission in one game. I'm not a big fan of these things where it's like, pick up something from this map and then extract and then take it into another map and do a thing. Because then if you die in that second map, you've now got to do the thing in the first map again. It's very tedious. I'd really like it if it was just designed with the idea that you are trying to do something exciting in one game. By the way, in case you're wondering why I'm letting this guy bleed out, it's because I think he stole my gun. So the team that killed me did take my guns and then rezzed me, which is fine. They're allowed to do that. But I thought that guy was maybe the one who had done it. And so I was waiting for him to bleed out so I could see if he had my gun. But then he started self-rezzing, so I just revived him anyway. But yeah, I'd like if they took, with the missions, they took the idea that every later mission should be an adventure. So maybe it could be things like, okay, they set up buildings where there's particular difficult types of enemies, different types of enemies maybe. Maybe like a building full of turrets and there's another building full of mines. And it's like, then you've got to go in to retrieve something from there. Or maybe something, you know, like where you've got the helicopters chasing you and you've got to use a certain vehicle to get between one location and another super fast. Or maybe something where you've got to, you know, climb up a tower, then parachute to a point that's a really long way away, so you've got quite a difficult parachute jump to do. Or something like that. I really like missions like that, which just give you something where it's like, you hear the mission, you understand what you have to do, and then you have to kind of come up with a plan of how you're going to manage it. And normally it forces you to play in a way that's a bit different to how you normally would. Those kind of missions are fun. The missions where it's just, you know, pick up these 5 things or kill 10 enemies with this gun or something like that, I think they get really, really tedious. And it's actually been a problem with the last couple of seasons of DMZ that a lot of the final missions, a lot of the kind of tier 5 missions and the story missions have been like that. Like they've been a bit rubbish. They've just been kind of, yeah, go here and interact with this, and then go interact with this, and then you're done. There's one where you have to go into the Koshai complex, and it's something like you have to defend a bunch of doors or stairways or something. And when you go in there, you just go in there, press a button on the wall, and then the timer starts counting down. I'm pretty sure enemies are meant to attack you. They don't. Like, the enemies just leave you alone completely. Maybe a couple of enemies start walking through at some point. And it's like, that's the final mission in a faction. And all you're doing, essentially, is pressing 3 buttons and then hanging around. Like, nothing exciting happens. I really like that mission where you used to have to get all of the vehicles and put them all at the petrol stations in hydroelectric and then set charges on all of them, then climb up a tower and press the button and destroy them all at once. That was a cool idea. Like, that was a fun, challenging thing to do. It was challenging to get all the vehicles together, to make sure we're all in the right place, coordinate it all, and then get up there. The end result was pretty lackluster. You know, you didn't have a cool explosion or anything, but the idea behind it was super cool. Now, we're going to get on to one last thing that I would like them to change about DMZ, and I think this is probably the thing that people will disagree with me the most. And that's that after all of this, talking about all of this, the thing that I'd like the most to do with DMZ is to get rid of it for a couple of years. Or a year. I don't know when it would come back. I'm not sure if they'd bring it back in a Treyarch game. Maybe it would have to be for the next Infinity Ward game. But I think I'd really like it if they just took DMZ away, thought about what they'd learned from it, and then redesigned it almost from the ground up, you know, for a new game, for a new engine, for a new map, whatever, and really redesigned it, taking out the things that worked really well and keeping them, and then getting rid of some of the things that made it a little bit boring, some of the things that made it a little bit frustrating, and more importantly, didn't release it as a beta, and, you know, tried to make it something that was polished, something that was ready, maybe even had like a beta test program for people who are super into DMZ, say like, okay, you You can try it out on these sort of special servers, but you have to sign up for it and agree to things, agree that you're not going to like talk about how terrible it is or something, I don't know, but just like let people have a go at it that way, but then release it to the public when it's ready, because DMZ is like so buggy. There's so many missions that don't work, there's so many little weird glitches all the time that affect nearly every game. It would be awesome if they took DMZ away and then brought it back in like the state it should be in this kind of finished complete state. That would be awesome, and I think I would like that more than them just struggling along trying to add little bits and pieces to it over the next few months. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.